welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I was going to talk about priorities and how we schedule around our priorities instead of trying to fit our priorities into our life, into our schedule. But then I was thinking, what are my priorities? And I thought, maybe I should do it on, figuring out what your priorities are. And then I was like, well, how am I going to talk about it if I don't know what my priorities are? I know that recovery is my priority, but there's much more to that. So I started digging a little deeper and I thought, let's go back to values. Like, let's go back to the foundation of recovery and where I was when I started. When we were starting this journey together on this podcast, I visited a lot of like self-love, self-respect, self-reflection, self-kindness, all of this self. And it's been a long time since I have gone back to those core values that you and I determined a couple years ago. So I wanted to revisit that again and walk through how I determined that. And it's something that I worked with my psychiatrist on, and it's something that always has to live inside my day so that I really feel happy and fulfilled. So it starts with building a bit of self-respect, I think. There's a guy in my morning meeting who he visits every now and then. And when he does, he talks a lot about how he did not used to have self-respect. Like his whole life when he was drinking, he didn't have any self-respect. And I can really relate to that. And it really came down to my poor decisions. And I was making these poor decisions because I feel like my behavior was not built on any kind of values. I've always felt like I was a good person. I always felt like, when I would think about going to church or not going to church and like being religious or not and all that stuff, I would think, underneath, like I'm a really good person. And I felt like that's good enough. But as I have worked my program and gone through the 12 steps of my program, I have determined that although I felt like I was a good person and a nice person, I was lacking in a lot of participation in society, like as being someone of service and helping other people. Like I was really self-serving, and it was an unfortunate realization when I started looking at how my behavior has been self-serving. I thought of things like, well, if there was one cookie left, I would always give it to the other person, But there's a lot more that goes into being a person of service, like having a role as a human among human beings. And so in order to expect other people to respect me, I needed to respect myself. And the way that I think, built self-respect is by forming these personal values. And they serve as a compass for me. and they drive, I like to think, most of my behavior, but I know I still, it's progress, not perfection. So, I have this workbook that I bought years ago, and it's called the Self Love Workbook. And I have shared this with several people who listen to the podcast. But if you're interested in finding out more about this workbook, I'll put it in the description of the podcast. But several of you already have it. So I don't know if you guys actually worked the workbook, but I have not worked it entirely, but there are some sections that I have, and the section on values is one that I have worked, not perfectly, but I have done some of the exercises in here. So the the goal is to find values that adhere strongly to your sense of self. Like, what are the values that are important to you? And then we rate them. So I'm going to go through a bunch of the values. I'm just going to read them slowly. And then what I want you to do is think about, do you agree that this is a value for you? Or do you disagree that this is a value for you? Something that, that really speaks to you, that's important to you. Or do you strongly agree? So we're going to go with disagree that that's not a value, agree that it is a value, and strongly agree. Like, this is, yes, hell yeah, this is one of the most important things to me as I navigate my life and my relationships. So I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to read several of them. So just sit back as I read these words and think about if they are important to you or not. So you disagree, you agree, or you strongly agree that it's important to you. So here we go. Achievement, awareness, ambition, beauty, charity, cleanliness, comfort, communication, connection, courage, fame, flexibility, freedom, fun, happiness, health, honesty, humor, learning, logic, love, peace, politeness, productivity, reflection, security, selflessness, solitude, spirituality, stability, wealth. And that's it. So, again, I didn't read all of them, but these are some of them were repetitive, so I tried to call out the ones that were a little unique in my opinion. So I did this exercise, and the ones that I strongly agreed with were communication, health, and learning. And um, although I had like some that I agree with, like humor is important to me, reflection, spirituality, honesty, happiness, comfort, courage, all of those things I agree are really important to me. But what really drives me, what really gets me going is communication. That was something at work that drove me freaking crazy is lack of communication. And if somebody is a really good communicator, I get really pumped up about it. That's when somebody can use words that are so perfect to express themselves. I get really excited about it. Um, Learning has also been something that has always been a driver for me. I get really excited when I learn something new. What I will never forget is never wanting to graduate from school because I didn't want to stop learning. I was a quite naive about thinking that school was the only place I was ever going to learn, that life didn't have its own lessons in it. Like I never got that until quite a while after I graduated. I was just, I was drinking a lot for so long that I just didn't see the lessons in life. I was still trying to run on the foundation of knowledge that I had gotten, in early in life. And I just didn't get it. I was very naive. And then the last one, health, is so important to me because without it, I mean, what else do we have, really? And it's not just my health, it is the health of those that I love as well. And mental health is health as well. So I include that my in my concept of health. So then if you've thought of three of them, I know it was a lot to listen to and then try to remember, but um, try to think about what your top three values are that are most important to you. And some of the questions you can ask yourself in order to help you choose values that top the rest is to think about, why is the value important to you? Like, why is health an important value to me? Like, I my day revolves around health. And that's obvious because I'm in recovery. But before I had my stroke and I was working a full-time job, there was still a prioritization of health for me. I always tried to make sure that there was some kind of exercise in my life, and sometimes more, sometimes less, but always tried to make sure there was some sort of exercise in my life. And then mental health, that was something that became a priority. I mean, it was always something that was a priority for me because I suffered from mental health issues. So I took medication and went to different counselors and talk therapy and stuff. But once I started working the steps in sobriety, I recognized that I finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I finally saw that I can live happy with the mental health issues that I have, I don't have to just take medication. Like, there is work to be done, and that work is never ending. And I think that my experience with mental health, having dealt with it my whole life and just given medication and given, like, here's some counseling you can get or something like that, but there's no skeleton to um mental health improvement. There's no right way to approach mental health issues. And having worked the steps of my program, I have seen that there is a program that works for so many people that who struggle with this addiction issue. And I feel that mental health is absolutely, for me, 100% intertwined into addiction. And the program gives us a way to start removing the layers and working on what it is that's actually going on inside my head. So this is why health is one of my values. So why is this important to me? This is important to me because should be something that you can work through on one of your top values that I read. The other question is, without this value, like, what fulfillment do I have without this value? Can I function without this value? Humor is a value that's really important to me. I love that my husband and I laugh whenever we're together. That is so important to me. And I think that it makes our relationship so strong. But can I live without the humor? Yes. And I need to live without the humor sometimes. Sometimes we need to be serious, and we are. So that's kind of the thought process around, without this value, what am I? What am I like? And then finally, and this is really important, how do I uphold this value? So what are my actions throughout my day? Because it should be, if I have these values that are tip top important to me, then my behavior should be working around those values on a daily basis, in my opinion. So I uphold this value in what way every day? So let me practice that one. Communication. Well, I uphold this value. Communication is crazy, crazy important to me. I cannot function without communication. And I learned that real quick when I left my job. I recognized that I have got to, this communication layer has been pulled out from under me because I wasn't working anymore and interacting with all of those wonderful colleagues that I had. So I immediately integrated a new level of communication in my life, this podcast being one of them. I'm very much present on social media now in a non-obsessive way. I try to make it a non-obsessive way. Sometimes I get a little caught up on little videos that hurt my head, and then I end up having to shut my computer for the rest of the day and take a nap or something like that. So takes a lot of prioritizing communication, but understanding, like, this is the part of communication that fuels you. And this is the part of communication that drains you. So there's really like this very happy medium that I have to find so that I don't start triggering my head. So communicating is both, broadcasting outward, but then also receiving. So there's a fine line, I should say, not a happy medium, fine line, whatever, you know what I meant. So communication, how do I do it? Social media with limitations. My husband, I try to communicate with my family and my friends more often than I ever did when I was working, and then of course the podcast. So health, what am I doing for my health? Well, I'm going to get dry needling, which I went to today, and it was so freaking achy after I left there, but she really did a lot of needling today. So I'm hoping that with my exercise alongside that, I'm going to continue to improve, and I am. So my behavior would be I'm drinking water, go to my dry needling, I'm doing exercises before bed. I've been walking with my dogs a little more than I was, trying to keep active and keep my back moving and pushing again, there's a fine line, pushing my visual limitations. So I've been walking a mile, and I feel like that's still my sweet spot right now. So once in a while I'll push it too far, but I'm really trying to find that fine line with that too. So it's interesting as I'm talking through this, I'm discovering that each of my values, I can do it to detriment, and I'm looking at my next one. My third one is learning, and I absolutely do that. I push my limits and sometimes do it to my detriment as well. So, the different ways that I like to do learning is I do a lot of research for my podcast, and that's been a great way to learn about mental health, learn about vestibular disorders and stroke, and as I look for ways to communicate to support one of my other values, I get to learn more about different mediums or media, whatever, that I can communicate out on. So, for example, today, not, no, we'll just say, I don't remember what I did today, but yesterday I was learning a little bit about the SlideShare website because I took the vestibular disorder, the vision problems with vestibular disorders article that I love and always talk about from the vestibular.org website. I repurposed that article into a slideshow, and it's taken me quite some time to do it, but I uploaded it to SlideShare because what I thought is just another format in order to communicate to people who it might resonate with, who are having visual issues, that maybe they'll run across it in that format. So I'm learning how to do all these things because it is important to me to continue to exercise my brain. I love it. It feels good when I exercise my brain as much as it feels good when I exercise my body. So, so that's it. I'm going to stop there. That's how I created my core values. And then once I'm able to define what my values are, then I can better prioritize. And that was the original topic that I wanted to talk about today. But I'm going to stop there, and then tomorrow we can talk about prioritizing what matters to us most. And this process of identifying what our values are is an exercise in learning more about ourselves and knowing our true self, because it can get lost. And when I start, especially when I was working, and I guess anytime we get so caught up in like what we need and what we want and what we aspire to be, that I think our values get lost. When I start working too far, like doing too much in the way of like learning about SlideShare or trying to do too much on my computer, I start seeking one of the other values rather than learning. I start, I think, moving towards, let's see, there was one that came up that I read. Like I'm working towards what feels like fame. Am I doing this because I want to go viral, or am I doing this because I want to help other people? That's kind of not a great example, but you know what I mean. Like I always have to pay attention to what my limitations are and understand when my behavior aligns with the value and when I may have strayed off of it. And I can do that with all of them. I can do that with learning, health, and communication. So making sure that I understand the whys for what I'm doing every day, and supporting my values so that I actually feel fulfilled. And that goes back to the spoon and cup theory. I think that those values are what supports filling your cup up. So your cup up. So that's it. I'm going to stop. I swear I'm going to stop. And we'll come back tomorrow and talk about priorities and creating your schedule around your priorities instead of trying to squeeze your priorities into your day. So with that, I will leave you be. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.